Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the ninth talk as part of the Entrepreneurship Talk series organized by the Department of Entrepreneurship Management and also under the aegis of Institute Innovation Council. So, today we have Dr. Anita Sharma, who is an academician as well as an entrepreneur. And she was a professor, entrepreneur, and YouTuber. She is a professor, entrepreneur, and a YouTuber. So, as an entrepreneur, she runs two unique ventures. The first venture is Drive on My Own. It is a mobility solution provider platform for people with locomotive disability or reduced disability. So, it provides end-to-end solutions that help them learn to drive on accessible and modified cars. And the second venture is known as Inkpot Hub. So Inkpot Hub is India's first digital platform that enriches and celebrates the journey of researchers. It has incubated. It was incubated at ISB Mohali and has featured more than 250 stories so far. And as a professor, she has taught entrepreneurship subjects at the Institute of Repute, such as IIM Amritsar, Thapar University, and also taught as a visiting faculty at institutes like IIFT New Delhi, IMT Ghaziabad. As a YouTuber, she runs two channels to communicate with her audience in different spaces of research in disability. And she is a fellow of the Indian Institute of Management Indore and Indian Inclusion Summit, Bangalore. So her work in disability space is exemplary and is featured by Femina, the Business Standards, Outlook, the Tribune, the Better India, Your Story Media, and many TV news channels. So she is the recipient of highly recognized Positive Health Award 2019 by Dr. Batra's Foundation for her work in the disability sector. She is one of the 21 most inspiring women of Rajasthan 2021. So in this year, she was also featured in a book called The Invisible Majority, India's Abled Disabled. She is popularly known as the girl on four wheels for a passion for car driving. So she holds the record of being India's first woman skydiver with a disability. She's a dreamer and die-hard optimist. Her love for baking can be felt through the aroma of blueberry muffins she bakes. So wonderful to have you here at IIT Hyderabad, and over to you. And look forward for the interesting interactive session. I request all participants to also actively participate. If you have any questions, please feel free and to post in the chat box to ask the professor, Dr. Anita Sharma. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Professor Lohit. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very extremely happy to be a part of IIT Hyderabad for another 1.5 hours. Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to speak about my own journey, which is of entrepreneurship. And I believe that entrepreneurship is a part of entrepreneur and entrepreneur in Hindi. I define it as uh, if I split it in two words, entrepreneur, it is entrepreneur. So anything which gives you entrepreneur, and if you want to follow that antar prerna, then it in Hindi we can say that it is all about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial journeys. I've taught entrepreneurship for last 16 years, as I was mentioning in the informal conversation, and that teaching has definitely helped me a lot in understanding, to build that understanding about entrepreneurship and how to run a business, and about finance, about marketing, about hiring, everything around it. I'm certainly very fortunate to have that conceptual understanding. And now, because I'm running these organizations, I'm kind of very sure that these theoretical underpinnings have definitely helped me a lot in designing my own ventures. So I'll talk about my journey first, and then I'll try to connect the nuances around entrepreneurship with you all. Allow me to share these slides. Just give me a moment. I'm just sharing my slides so that it will help easier for all of you to relate what I'm talking about. Uh, is this visible?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So this is about entrepreneurship and my own experiences. Um, okay, so today when you see my LinkedIn profile, this is something it looks like, which talks about drive on my own. It talks about my skydiving experience, because I try to relate myself in that adventure sport as well. So this is something which I nowadays speak with the audience in terms of an entrepreneur, a professor, a YouTuber, and India's first woman skydiver with a disability. I generally talk about accessibility, accessible world, and tourism, travel, inclusion. All these hashtags are around the conversations which I make. I'll take you around 40 years ago time frame when I was born in a very small town called Degana in district Nagaur in Rajasthan. It was Indian Air Force Day when the entire world was celebrating the Indian Air Force Day, and I was born on the same day. So I'm fortunate enough to share my birthday with the Indian Air Force Day as well. My parents were very very happy, and because I'm the first born in my family, so my mother was just 19 and my father was 24 then. So then they were celebrating, they were enjoying my homecoming, and within 6 months of my birth, these things became my destiny. As in, I was confined to leg braces. I got polio virus, and my waist down body was completely paralyzed. I was not able to move my legs as a 6 months old baby. When parents start clapping just to make the child move the legs and all, I was not able to do all those things, and my parents realized that something was wrong with my legs. So they took me to different hospitals, different doctors, and eventually doctors told that I will not be able to walk at all, because I have had an experience of polio, and because the virus stuck to me, and my waist down body got paralyzed. My parents actually, when it hit, polio struck to me, my parents decided that the only thing which could help me in my life was education. So they dedicated their entire life in designing my career, designing my job, my life. And my father wanted me to be a doctor. So you can see my parents here in the photo down left corner. So I have two siblings, younger sister and a brother. And my father wanted me to be a doctor because he saw me suffering in hospitals, and he saw different kind of bad experiences. So he wanted me to be a doctor, and my entire education revolved around um, you know making me to be a doctor. So my mother was dedicated, my father was dedicated for my education, and entire life revolved around it. I was preparing for medical entrance exams, and I failed after 11. After 12, in that medical entrance exam, that CPMT or PEMT exams, which are national and state level exams, and I could not qualify those. I've also mentioned the timeline so that you can relate. So I was born in 1981. It was 2001. After 20 years, after these many years, after my parents' dedication, I failed in all these exams. I was not able to qualify, and after that, my father thought that I won't be able to make it to the medical side, so he wanted me to shift my you know stream. I moved to commerce, and I did my graduation from Maharani's College. There's a college in Rajasthan, in Jaipur, Maharani's College from University of Rajasthan. I got admission over there. After my graduation, I did my MBA from Banastali Vidyapeeth. And after Banastali Vidyapeeth, I eventually got a job as a research associate in Banastali Vidyapeeth. And I was leading my life, eventually got promoted to assistant professor level in the same institute. Life was extremely good. It was really going good. And because my father lost hopes in me, because I was an average child, and never got his dreams fulfilled. But by this time, it was 2006. From 2001 to 2006, I completed my studies, post graduation, and I started earning. So when I started earning, in the meanwhile, when I joined college, I got a two-wheeler with side wheels. It was a TVS scooty, and I had that scooty, and I was going to college. And when I joined job, I told my parents that I now want to upgrade my mobility solution. So mobility was earlier on the two wheels with side attachments, and now it was I wanted to have a car. But my parents were kind of very skeptical about it. So how could I drive a car, because my legs were not functional and I was not able to press the accelerator or clutch or brake, and I could not shift between the pedals. So they were not very sure about it, and but I was kind of firm, and I started searching on on the internet and found some solutions. And I told one day to my father that get me a car, otherwise I'll buy myself. I'll gift that car to myself. But so my father said to me that okay, fine, we'll give you a car, and he helped me get this car. You can see here in the photo, it's a red Alto base version I got in 2009. Eventually, after driving the two-wheeler for with side wheels for 8 years, I got this car in 2009. And okay, so moving forward, everything was going on absolutely well. I was having a job, I was earning decent, I was teaching, enjoying. Everything was going on absolutely normal. So the natural step was marriage. And here comes a very, very personal narration here, because that changed my entire course of action, my life overall. So marriage came as a natural, obvious choice, which when you completed your studies and when you are having a job. So finally, when my parents started looking for a suitable person for me, I come from a very, very conservative family and conservative environment. Rajasthan itself is a very backward in terms of conventionalism. So it was very difficult for them to find a partner for me. And in the meanwhile, when I was growing up, I had a childhood friend, and we used to play together. So because my parents were looking a match for me, and my you know I and my friends' parents were also looking for a match for him. So one day I asked him, "Let's get married because we are friends and we can, maybe lead a good life together. As a childhood friend, we can eventually turn into partners." So he replied, as a friend, he replied to me, and this statement actually shattered my, imagination around marriages. So he told me that I am not looking for a girl who is bad at legs, and he himself was a person with a disability. So that was particularly a moment when, the rejection. I realized the meaning of rejections, and rejection in body image was kind of very shattering for me. So um, that was the first moment when I realized that okay, how bad it could feel to somebody who is a disabled person, and hearing it from a disabled person was really very challenging for me. So at home we started. It was again the time frame from 2009 to, or maybe 8 to 11, 10, 11. And at home, the conditions, my parents started asking me like what kind of partner I was looking for. So I made three conditions. I told my parents that I need three conditions to be fulfilled. The first is that the person should be a disabled person. The second condition was that at least the person should be at least a graduate, and you will be very, all of you would be very surprised to know that finding near a graduate person was very difficult for my parents. And I also wanted to have somebody who is self-employed or employed by himself, not, you know settled. I don't, and I never wanted my parents to settle that person, and because he's my partner, that's why they could settle him. So I never wanted that. So these three conditions, I told my parents that if these three conditions are met, I'll be happy to go ahead. So nothing happened, and that was a time when I really felt extremely suffocated, helpless, and hopeless as well, because all three conditions were not met. But somehow my parents said that you can't find all three conditions met in one person, so liberate your necessary conditions. So I said fine. So they found one person who was a disabled, not a graduate, but at least employed somewhere all by himself. And finally I got engaged to somebody, and succumbed to the societal pressures and conditions and family conditions. My mother always used to say that what after us kind of, because parents were there to take care of me. So if they were not around, if in the future if they are not around, who is going to take care of me? So she would always make me believe in the philosophy that you need to have a partner to lead a good life, and otherwise society is not going to help you anywhere. So because of all these pressures and emotional conditions, I succumbed and got engaged. But in few days I realized that if today they are nobody supporting me the way I wanted to lead my life, who is going to support me after marriage if something wrong happens? And I thought about it, and after 15 days of that engagement, I asked my parents to call that engagement off, because I was not very sure of that person whom I was to get married. So I called off, and that was a very difficult period for my family. In fact, I suppose because they had to take care of the societal conditions, they had to speak to the relatives, they had to speak to the other extended family members. I was out of it, and once I called off my engagement, everybody called me a rebel at home. That I do not listen to anybody, and because of that, in for a very long time, nobody actually talked to me, and I do not have any photos of that particular time frame, because I was having self doubts, I was having body image issues, I was having completely I lost the confidence in myself. And that was extremely difficult times, because nobody at my family, my sister, my brother, my parents, and my relatives, nobody spoke to me for good 4 or 5 months. And in the meantime, I started questioning my own existence, that am I good enough for anything? And I don't know how many of you remember, there was a mobile, very small mobile, Tepis 3310, or I think that I forgot the number actually, Nokia 3310. And we could, during those days, we could set the status of our own screen. So I had set it as am I good enough for anything? So the same thing, I had set it up over there as well. And I was questioning every day to myself that am I good enough? Will I ever be able to make proud of me to my people? So will I ever be able to decide for myself what kind of future I'm looking for? So everything was kind of very much questionable, and I was not having any answers. But I was very much sure on that particular, during those days, that I had nothing to lose, because I lost my emotional connect with my family members, no support from the external world. So I had actually nothing to lose. And that moment I realized, when you have nothing to lose, you are the strongest person on that day. So I started looking for my options to go out of my comfort zone. So I thought that when I will be moving out of, when I'll be out of my place, my parents shelter or comfort zone. So and I had to prove to my parents that I could also live without your presence. And that was the moment, because I could not qualify for the medical entrance. One dream of my father shattered. I could not continue that engagement. My mother's dream shattered. So I decided that one day I'll definitely make them proud. And eventually, I did not tell it to anyone at my home. So I actually appeared for NET JRF. I qualified NET JRF, and I also appeared for CAT. Got a very good percentile and got calls from IIM Indore and IIM Bangalore. And I made sure, and I promised to myself that whichever institute results would come first, I would join that. IIM Indore result came first, and on July 12th, 2011, everything changed, and I joined, landed um, to IIM Indore. So things changed completely. I was 30 then, and leaving home at the age of 30, and leaving every kind of comfort which my parents, in terms of physical comfort, they had given. So everything changed. I had to do everything all alone. Going to banks, going to opening the bank account for the first time for myself was again a very it was a learning experience at the age of 30. So I traveled all alone. Everything was going on extremely good after that. So change that particular living alone made me learn so many things. So I traveled, I moved to Indore. The entire um, life changed in terms of self exploration and complete independence. So I was taking calls for myself, I was deciding for myself, I was traveling alone to different conferences or seminars, or even traveling home during those days was all alone. So I was feeling so liberated that I could take decisions for myself and the way I wanted to live. So this time frame from July 2011 to 2015. And by this time, my parents also and my family also realized that this was a good decision, and I was happy, and they were happy too after I moved to IIM Indore. Then I joined Thapar University in Chandigarh. There is a campus of Thapar University in Chandigarh. I moved there. I traveled to more than 10 countries, and again traveled alone, traveled with colleagues, traveled to different cultures, and I experienced all those things. And this happened from September 2015 to 2019. Okay, because in 2019 July I quit my job, and I talk about why did I quit my job of full-time professorship. And this was happening, and this was like a dream job for me, wherein I was getting everything which I wanted to do. It was all about travel. It was always about good work culture, good work environment, and I was thoroughly enjoying the entire uh, job profile which I was having. uh, and in the meanwhile, when I was in Chandigarh, so I'll give you an example over here. In Chandigarh, Chandigarh is a very, very accessible city, and there were so many events every weekend happening. So I used to go to those events. In one of the events, there was a lady who came to me, and this is she, and her name is Anju. So Anju used to live in Panchkula. So Chandigarh is a tri-city. So Anju lived in Panchkula, and I was living in Chandigarh. In fact, Mohali. We were having 28 kilometers distance from our places. So in one of the events, I happened to meet her, and she came to me and she told me, Anita, I want to be like you. And in a very joking way, I said, then appear for CAT, appear for net JRF, and go to IIMs, do your PhD, come back, and you'll have the same life the way I wanted. So you wanted the way I have. So she said, no, Anita, I really don't want your life in terms of work, but I want the life of your independence, and that is through the driving and the thing, because you can go anywhere wherever you wish to go. So, and again, in very joking way, I said, go to any driving school, you'll be able to learn, and you can drive your own car. In next 2 days, she took my phone number. In another 2 days, she called me up and said, I contacted a few driving schools here in Panchkula, Chandigarh, Mohali, but none of them help people with disabilities to learn driving. And um, and I asked again to her that, why don't you go to your relatives, any of the relatives who could help you learn driving? So she said, nobody in my family believes that I could drive. And she compelled me so much that I said, yes, okay, over the weekend I would come to your place and help you learn driving. So in 4 weekends, I helped her learn driving, and in another four weekend, in 4 weeks, she purchased her own car, got it modified, and started driving. And she called me up and said that you changed my entire life, and my entire perspective towards life has changed, because now I'm completely independent, and nobody Nobody believed in my family that I could drive, and now I am. So I am completely independent. So these were the words of Anju, and she is now completely independent. It's been 6-7 years. She's driving her own car, and I feel very happy to see her driving. So this was my first experience of training people on modified cars, how to drive, and helping people learn driving. In the meanwhile, I moved to IIM Amritsar. So it was in April 2018. And from April to June, I had a very lean time because classes were not there. Students had gone out for summer internship. So I was having a good lean time over there. So I posted, there was a Facebook page which is called as The Voice of Amritsar. I posted this particular post, 2-3 lines over there, and the entire post. So they were having close to 75,000 people that time. So in another 16, another 2 days, I got 16-17 calls of people with disabilities and elderly females. They wanted to learn driving, and I also got one call from a lady called Divya Sharma. This lady contacted me, and because the thought of making some people with disabilities learn driving, it was kind of very much inspiring. As per her, she said she wanted to feature a story, and in 2 days the story was released, and it became like viral information to others, viral news. So it became popular. And then I started, contacting. I started getting calls. I got this particular case is very interesting. I would like to talk about it. He is Rahul Sharma, and this boy is waist down paralyzed. He has no sensation at all due to spinal cord injury in his lower limbs. And he saw me this newspaper article, and he contacted me. He would live around again 30 kilometers away from my place. I was living in Amritsar. He was living in Jandiala. So these two places were having a distance of 30-32 kilometers. Again, I went to him every weekend for 4-5 weekends, and he learned. And the mother came running one day that, Anita, you changed our lives, because we had lost all hopes on Rahul. He was confined to home. He was not going outside anywhere. He lost his job. He was working with a lab as a lab technician, and he resumed his job after he started driving his own car. So when I started, looking into these kind of examples, wherein I tried to help them, and they said that the entire life perspective changed towards driving, towards independence, and living life the way they wanted. So I started thinking about it, and in the meanwhile this happened. So again, there is a news channel, this is called as Punjab Case. I'll show the video here.
दुनिया में बहुत कम लोग ऐसे होते हैं जो शारीरिक कमी के बावजूद अपनी अलग पहचान बनाते हैं, किसी पर बोझ नहीं बनते, बल्कि अपने बलबूते पर हर मंजिल को पा लेते हैं। आज हम आपको एक ऐसे इंसान के साथ मिलाने जा रहे हैं जो अपाहिज होने के बावजूद न सिर्फ खुद आत्मनिर्भर बनी, बल्कि अपने जैसे अन्य विकलांगों का सहारा भी बन रही है और उनको कार ड्राइविंग सिखा रही है। बात कर रहे हैं अमृतसर की रहने वाली 36 साला डॉक्टर अनीता की। पेशे से प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर अनीता 64% विकलांग हैं। दोनों टांगों से अपाहिज होने के बावजूद वो पूरी तरह आत्मनिर्भर है। कार भी खुद चलाती है। डॉक्टर अनीता अपने जैसे अन्य विकलांगों को भी कार चलाना सिखा रही हैं और अब तक 3 लोगों को ड्राइविंग में माहिर बना चुकी हैं।
सर, मेरे को कार चलाते पिछले 8-9 साल हो गए हैं। इसमें मैंने ये रियलाइज किया कि जब खुद से मैं चीज़ें करने लगी थी। जब मैं अपने पेरेंट्स पे डिपेंडेंसी मेरी इस कार चलाने से बहुत कम हो गई और बिल्कुल नेग्लिजिबल हो गई, तब रियलाइज़ किया कि ये ज़रूरी है कि जो और विकलांग लोग हैं, अगर उनके लिए मैं इसके अंदर कुछ कर पाऊँ, तो फ्रेंड्स को सिखाया, उसके बाद में फिर आगे धीरे-धीरे अब इसको आगे नेक्स्ट लेवल पे लेके जा रहे हैं, जहाँ पे अननोन लोग हैं, उनको भी सिखा रहे हैं।
Okay, so this was the video shot by Punjab Kesari, and again it was seen by many people. So I started getting contacts from many different institutes and organizations. Um, so this was again Chandigarh Rehabilitation Center. Um, I decided that I am going to take special cases, special because otherwise driving is not a rocket science. Anybody can learn and anybody can teach, but then conditions like people who using crutches or the level of disability is very high. So I started training to them and used to visit Chandigarh Rehabilitation Center. And in the meanwhile, I started, I started questioning like why other driving schools in India are not taking care or considering people with disabilities to be as a potential customer. And there were so many driving schools. Data statistics says that there are more than 4,000 driving schools in India, and I hired one person as an intern for 6 months. We did a survey, contacted close to 2,000 driving schools in India, and we asked them questions like why they do not help people with disabilities in learning how to drive a car. We got a lot of answers. A few of them were related to technology. They were not having modified cars. Few of them were saying that it's not having economies of scale. We do not have trainers. And very shocking because these are stereotypical answers. I also got from these driving schools that why a person with a disability is required to go out, to move out, to what is the requirement of for them to be mobile. So these kind of statements I heard, and we created a database. We created answers to their answers, and we did some analysis on that, and we realized that let's become India's first driving school for people with disabilities, which provide every kind of solution. And I started thinking around it, and I was still working with IIM Amritsar then. It was a social venture, it was a social initiative. It was running as a project in terms of drive on my own foundation. It was not a foundation then. It was just a project, and we were just experimenting whether it could work in the real sense, or I was just overestimating the entire business idea around it. So I was just experimenting. And in the meanwhile, I read a book called Ikigai. And this book is very interesting in terms of finding the purpose of somebody's life. And because we all yearn to find out that solution, that why our lives are, why are we born and what are we born for. So this book gave me that answer. And this Ikigai, I did an analysis for myself, my own conditions. So I realized that this is my Ikigai, and I posted somewhere on Instagram and said that my ikigai is to design a solution provider for people with disabilities because I love driving. I am good at it. And this is something I am also getting paid for, because for every driving session, it was not a charitable solution which I was offering. I had charged that to premium because it was a niche market, and the world was also looking for it. People in India are definitely not aware of many things around driving and car buying and all those aspects. So I had all the answers in terms of finding my ikigai, and decided that I should take a plunge, take a leap of faith, and move into this space of entrepreneurship with an idea that I am going to help people with disabilities to become mobility independent. So I quit my job and started drive on my own, and it was still a passion venture as a project. I had yet not registered it as a social enterprise. And this is and in the meanwhile, when I quit my job, it was July 2019. I started exploring options, started meeting with people. I did a lot of conversations with families and friends. I moved to Bangalore for a couple of weeks and became India Inclusion Foundation Fellow, and started interacting with a lot of disabled people around. they were looking for solutions around disability. So uh, everything was going on so smooth. So in October, I started full-fledgedly in October 2019. Ran everything for 4 or 5 months, and Corona happened. So when Corona happened, so the driving training sessions took a halt, and we were not really sure that when and how this Corona is going to get over. And months passed, weeks passed, months passed, years passed, and I never opened driving school after that until 2000 until December or November 2021. And in November 2021, I trained this girl. Her name is Shivangi. She came from Delhi to Jaipur just to learn driving, and this is her video. Post Corona, she is the one who came to Jaipur to learn driving.
कदम कदम मिलाए जा गगन गगन झुकाए जा रख हौसला कर फैसला तुझे वक्त बदलना है डरना तो बंदया रुकना तो बंदया राह पे चल बंदया डरना तो बंदया रुकना तो बंदया राह पे चल बंदया
So this was Shivangi, who came and learned and went back. She's struggling with license. She's struggling with a lot of things in Delhi, but I'm trying to help her out in deciding which car, how, when. So all those things are happening. Another thing which we started doing under the aegis of Drive on My Own as a foundation now, we started interacting with the families, because for people with disabilities in India specifically, families are the primary decision makers. In my case, also my relatives took a lot of decisions. So I know the importance of family members. So started coffee conversations. I name it as a coffee conversation kind of event. So we have done these kind of coffee conversations with family members just to make them understand through role models, through real life drivers with disabilities, that driving is possible, and help your family member with a disability to learn driving. So coffee conversation was a very popular event, and again after Corona, we had to stop it. um, Okay, so when Corona started, I started getting calls from many people with disabilities, and I realized that because of the public transport, closure of public transport, there was a surge in the demand of cars. So so eventually people started contacting me, not for driving, but to understand how to buy a car, because rules, regulations, concessions, everything was different. So for people with disabilities, it is different, definitely different. So they started contacting me, and I thought that I should share the information using a YouTube channel and communicate with the audience. It should reach to the right people. So I started putting the content on YouTube. I learned YouTube, how to put content, how to use this medium to communicate with the right audience. Took 3 months, gave 3 months training to myself, and then started it. Eventually it reached to the right audience, and now it is not only Drive on My Own is not only a training solutions provider, but also giving consultancy to people who are looking for how to buy a car, or what are the steps, procedures. You may find it very funny, but ask any person with a disability that how challenging it is. So we are helping each other. There are so many people, there are so many WhatsApp groups who are helping each other. So this has evolved eventually. These are some happy people who got their cars, learned how to drive. So I keep on sharing these kind of information on my social media handles. Feel very happy when I see their smiling faces, happy family members. So this is all about Drive on My Own. The story was featured by various social media, contemporary news channels, Your Story, The Better India, Femina, Times of India, and eventually some awards were given to me, and I post all these on social media just to make people share. Just wanted to share my happiness with them. This is the proudest photo I have ever got. So, wherein my father is holding my hand and my mother is patting my back, and all those pains which they got because of me. I'm sure after this event, when I got my convocation, my degree in my convocation in 2016, finally, I'm sure I made them proud. So this is the happiest moment in my life, and my family supported me in every possible way. Um, in this journey, I realized two things. One, that whenever we are in doubt, we always say, but we always keep on thinking. But I realized that when we think a lot, we always use certain words, but if, all get these kind of statements. So when we use a lot of buts in our thought process, we deliberately kill the chances of it's happening. So it's so whenever we say, I want to do this, but I want to go there, but I want to eat today this thing, but so all these but skills yeses. So I always believe that don't think too much, because ज़्यादा सोचने से इरादे कमज़ोर होते हैं. So when we have to make things happen, we have to make things happen. Do our analysis and move towards it. So that's the philosophy which I've lived and believed in. Okay, so this is my skydiving video. I'll show it to you. Okay, so I will also talk about another initiative of mine. This is an initiative which I joined after I quit my job of IIM Amritsar, and this is a venture called as Inkpot Hub, and this is a venture by my own student I was mentoring when I was in Amritsar and Thapa University, and I loved this idea so much that I joined this organization full time, um, and now I became the co-founder of the company, and I invested in the company and became the co-founder, became the CEO of the company, and this company is about researchers. This company is about professors, scholars, and all those people who are into research space in management. So we try to celebrate the journey of scholars, journey of professors, help them understand which institute is a good institute for their kind of research interest. So we try to map, help them design content around it. So this is India's first platform which talks about management research and stories of professors, celebrate their stories. So Inkpot Hub is the second venture. It's a completely for profit, and we try to talk to institutes to share their uniqueness of research with the audience, so that the right candidate could join and do the PhD and research successfully in the institutes. So the learning and the concepts which I'm going to leave you here behind with, okay, so whenever we talk about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship topics, entrepreneurship theory, entrepreneurship concepts, these topics and concepts are very important, and I'll try to help you all with my own life narratives. So life narratives means whenever entrepreneurship actually evolves when we experience some kind of events and incidences in our lives. Otherwise, finding business ideas, finding entrepreneurial opportunities becomes very, very difficult. So life narratives generally help people to realize that what problems, whichever problems they faced, they want others not to face those problems, and they find solutions around it. And that's how life narratives actually help. So I'll give you an example over here, which I used to give in my classroom when I used to teach entrepreneurship. There's a person called Anshu Gupta. Okay, Anshu Gupta is the founder of an organization called Goonj. And Anshu used to be a journalist. And in one of the stories, he was working on a very interesting stories in the winters in long back in New Delhi. And I'm sure you all know that what kind of winters New Delhi experiences, because it's very cold, it's very chilly. And he was in search of, Anshu was in search of a story. And he, while looking, he was walking on the streets, and he saw a person taking in a rickshaw, taking something. And this person's name is Habib Bhai. And he was Anshu started following Habib Bhai on because he was kind of, Anshu found Habib very suspicious, and he saw that Habib is carrying something on the rickshaw he was taking home. So Anshu followed Habib Bhai and reached to a particular place wherein Habib Bhai's daughter came. And whatever was on that particular rickshaw, this girl hugged her, hugged the thing on that rickshaw. And Anshu found that it was a dead body. Habib Bhai's job was to collect unidentified dead bodies on Delhi streets. Those people who die on the street, and people unrecognized bodies are there. So Habib's job was to pick those bodies and to take those bodies to the mortuary. So and Anshu also found that Habib's daughter was hugging these bodies because these are freshly these people died very recently, so the bodies were warm. So Habib's daughter wanted that warmth, and she was not able to even bear that Delhi cold. So Habib realized that, okay, because the person died on the road, and this Habib's daughter hugged the body. So he wrote a story, and the story went really viral. And people praised him as a journalist, that what kind of story, what kind of moving story he collected. And he found he was, again, Anshu was very moved from this life experience of his. And in another story search, he went to Pushkar, and it was Pushkar Mela time, and he stayed there for a few days. And he stayed in a village during Pushkar Mela. And in that village, two females died because of septic in their vagina, because during periods these ladies were using blouses having hooks, and those hooks, the infection occurred in the body, and these females died. Anshu was again moved by the entire experience. He forgot about Pushkar Mela, but he featured the story of these females, and he found a very common link over here. He said that it was a clothing, it was all about a piece of cloth. These ladies were using a piece of cloth. Habib Bhai was collecting all the bodies because of those deaths, because of the lack of clothes on the bodies. People were not wearing, warm clothes. That's why they died. And the girl, Habib Bhai's daughter, was not also wearing good, warm clothes. That's why she hugged the dead body. So he found a common link over there, and he found that it was all about cloth. And he started Goonj as a social enterprise. It's an NGO, and the tagline is clothing as a matter of concern. So I am giving you an example over here related to life narratives, which talks about the opportunities of starting something can be an experience which you have never felt personally in your life, but somebody else's experience, if you are seeing, So point number 4 here, when we try to identify opportunities, these opportunities can be serendipitous, can be vicarious experiences, but all we need to do is we need to keep our eyes and minds open. We need to search for a constant, lookout. We need to be in a constant lookout to identify these opportunities and see whether can we act on these available opportunities or not. Another thing which I've realized is something which is related to passion. As a professor of entrepreneurship, as a person who talks about entrepreneurship, I used to talk about passion a lot. Follow your passion, follow your dreams, follow whatever, whatever, whatever. So all these movies like Wake Up Sid or Three Idiots, all these movies also talk about follow your passion. But what happens is, this is my personal experience. I do not know whether others will experience the same thing or not. So when we talk about passion, I'm a very passionate person in terms of driving. I love driving. Whenever I want to, I do long drives and go out for drives. I'm very passionate about it. But when I started, taking driving sessions, it was not about driving. It was about training how to drive. And trust me, I found a gap over there, that it was not about driving, it was about training driving. And I found that gap. So entrepreneurs generally experience a challenge that if they're passionate about something, are they really doing and making money out of or doing business around their passion, or it is just that they enjoyed and now they've started and they have to continue because it is now their full-time job. So passion is extremely overrated, and I always say to students that at least go for 2 years job, then with passion you are able to take risk. Otherwise, who is going to feed your bills, who is going to feed you, who is going to pay your bills? It is always important to make that budget, make that safety vault wherein you can keep money for yourself, at least for a run time for 2 3 years, wherein you can try, experiment, and still go about your life. You need not to be dependent financially on somebody else. Then another aspect is called as causation and infatuation in entrepreneurship. So, majorly, entrepreneurs are the people who believe in decision making through infatuation. They see that whatever I have in terms of resources, in terms of money, in terms of any other kind of resource, in terms of, for instance, I had my own car. I had not bought any other car for my driving training sessions. So if I had waited for another car for driving training purpose, I would have not actually taken that decision to start driving training. So effectuation says that whatever resources you have, you can begin with that. Maybe small, but you can scale it up if you see that these opportunities are really sustainable, and don't put too much in terms of starting a venture, and don't think too much to start a venture. There's a sweet spot when you can realize that this is enough. Now I want to take a leap of faith and plunge and enter in that space, but with a calculated risk, identifying that passion around it, and then we can solve the world's problem. Another aspect which I have learned from my own experience, it's all about market research and product market fit. When I talk about driving training schools, I contacted more than 2,000 driving schools in India just to understand why they are not doing it. Because they are not fools who are not doing it. But I realized that before them, the market opportunity is very less. But for me, it was a huge market opportunity because there was no driving school, and I understand the pain of a person with a disability. So identifying that product market fit and market research is very important. I did that. We have also done that with Import Hub and for Drive on My Own both. Now we know that there is a requirement, and we entered. Validation comes from social media, and social media talks about your work, and social media talks about your initiatives. So I got that validation from stories which were published in the Better India or Your Story or Femina or any other newspaper or news media channel or wherever. So people started talking about it. It means that they want it, and they are validating my product. I'm not just pushing it. I'm getting a push from the environment, push from the market to continue it. So these are some things which I wanted to leave with you, so that all of you can relate. If you are thinking about your own entrepreneurial venture, keep these things in mind. And once it is done, this is all about entrepreneurship, and this was all about me. Thank you so much, and I'm open to questions now.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So the floor is open for discussion. Please feel free to ask questions. Okay, so it's a very interesting and very touching kind of narrative, which really inspire many of our students. So my question is, you have see many times passion in terms of what touches us change, isn't it? So how do we know that this is what it is forever? Or when you say entrepreneurship, is it okay to you know sort of move from one passion to another? Especially in your case, at some point you have to, in the form of corona, it made you shift gears to some other interest as well. So it happens among many entrepreneurs also. They at some point they have to sell their business and move to another venture. So what is your thought on it?
So I always believe it's a very interesting and important question. So when we teach in classrooms, we always say that follow your passion, follow this or that, because we want them to become an entrepreneur. And as a professor, it is our duty, it is our moral obligation, because I am teaching that subject. So I help. I need to bring that passion of a person out and push that person to follow the passion as well. But eventually what happens, I used to do the same thing in my classrooms, but I realized that passion is something which comes from within. Even if you push very hard to anybody, that bell shaped curve every time helps. So only out of 100, maybe 2 or 3 people will be interested, and they will be in entrepreneurial journey only after 2 3 years of our uh, once they start working. And I believe that that's the right time to enter. But when we talk about passion, passion is just an act of engaging ourselves gainfully, meaningfully. But when we talk about taking it into a business sense, because passion and converting that into a business are two altogether different things. So a person should learn that, okay, passion is fine, but can I make business out of it? Can I run a family out of it? Can I scale it up? Can I replicate in different formats in different countries? So if the answer is yes, I think then we should ask a person to take a leap of faith, take that plunge. When the safety nets are there, then only person should enter, because passion can only help you a little, this small. But to run a business, you need passion plus a lot of other things. If you have those, go for it. Otherwise, passion ko just keep it as a hobby, just keep it as a mental satisfying actions. Otherwise, no need to enter in any of the entrepreneurial ventures. Jobs are good enough in that case. No need to enter in the entrepreneurial space.
So there's another dilemma social entrepreneurs get into, which is uh, making money out of a social cause. In your case, you also mentioned a couple of times, I do it not for making money, but for a social cause. But do you really think social cause and making money, they are two different things? Is it possible to have both?
Yes, it is definitely possible to have both. So we always believe that when we are into social entrepreneurship, we need to run a charitable business. That's a perception, that's a stereotypical thought. But when we are into a social entrepreneurial ventures means that we are working for a mission. Okay, the mission is to work for the society, not to earn the profit, but to create an impact. So, in this journey of creating an impact, we need money. and we need to think like a business person in the complete sense. So from where we will get that money in the business. So in social entrepreneurial journeys, the money making is not generally from selling a product, but also getting these grants and these support from the government. So we need to think in those directions as well. And to sustain that business for a longer period of time, we need to showcase that impact so that the society is moving our own business. We need not to run after a certain period of time, but society, when see the impact, can contribute. So that is something about social entrepreneurship. And it was also my dilemma, because when we go in a legal way means when we have to register our organizations, it is very important for us to understand, having a good CA or CS, to understand what should be the nature of the organization. I took 2 years to finalize that my venture is going to be a Section 8 company. It is not going to be a trust or a society. So Section 8 company works like an organization which is like the government, like the corporates. It works in that complete sense, and they can work with the government and they can work with the corporates as well. So it took me a lot of time. A lot of compliances are there as compared to trust and society. But now I am kind of settled that it is going to be Section 8 company, and the process is complete now. So you know that's how the functionality of social enterprises or social organizations works. And we can also get salaries from what we are working for, and it is at par with what other works we could have done otherwise. So if I was a professor, if I was earning more than 1,50,000 a month, I could still take maybe 1,50,000 a month if I am earning this much from my social enterprise. But I cannot keep any profits. If the business is making more money, I cannot take it from my business. So that's the only thing. So I need to consider myself as an employee of the organization, but not as a gainer from that profit which the social enterprise is making. So that's a dilemma. People definitely are having this dilemma, but I would always believe that when we talk about more like a charitable business, it's not going to work. So a founder of a social enterprise should be a founder. It's not open for a charity purpose.
Thank you. Any other questions from student side?
Hello, ma'am. This is Indra over here. I had a couple of questions. So going back to Ganesh sir, as he was speaking about passion, so I think you would have probably seen in our generation, the thing about passion is like everybody talks, right? From 10th standard, people are like, follow your passion, follow your passion. Don't you think that with our generation we need to experience first, then understand what is passion? Like I have realized in my own school or college life I might be good in certain things, A, B, C, and then how exactly do you decide that this is your passion? Because passion, as you said, is overrated. Sometimes it's just a hobby. For a certain amount of time, for me, like sports will give me a uh, lot of happiness, and it gives me a feeling of a freedom. At the same time, I might like painting, and 2 years down the lane, like 5 years down the lane, I haven't been doing any of those. And now I realize I've lost the touch of it as well. So how do you think that, even with younger kids nowadays, I see this parents also, they tend to send their students that, oh, you're good in singing, continue this itself. Like this career motivation, should it begin in such a young age,
Yeah.
or we should experience first, like how we see, that if we have any experience, then probably it will give a better judgment.
Indra, a very interesting question and very thought-provoking, in fact. So when I see the parents' perspective, so I'll split this conversation into this answer in two parts. First, from the parents' perspective, parents have FOMO, because they think that if my child is not following or doing certain things, The child might lack some kind of opportunities. So they try to put the child in all those, places, maybe different kind of hobby classes or sports or art or culture, whatever. They try to put that child in that, and that is a good initiative, because then only child will be able to experience different tastes. So it is a good thing. And after a certain point in time, parents again feel FOMO, that when the child it gets in, say, 11th or 12th or in college, they say that now enough of these hobbies, now turn into, or enough of this passion, now turn into your career in terms of specifically into engineering or medical or whatever. They want a secure job, and that is absolutely okay. We need to understand their perspective as well, because they are coming from different generation. Now, as a person, as an individual person, if I can have a hobby or a passion which I can turn into an entrepreneurial journey or entrepreneurial venture, it can only happen when I understand the business sense of it. So we need to have these understanding about entrepreneurship theory and concepts that can help us decide that is this opportunity or this business idea which is related to my passion is helping or going to help me scale it up. We need to identify feasibility of that opportunity in terms of our passion. And the third thing is, we are generally very much moved by what is happening around us. Okay. So when I gave an example of Anshu Gupta, we were he was very much moved by things which were happening around him. And it is a 22 Goonj is a 22 years old organization. And 22 years ago, the glamorization of entrepreneurship and glamorization of passion was not there. He was literally moved by his own experiences, and he decided to quit his journalism full time and enter in social organization or social venture in a larger level. A lot of I'll give you an example, one more example over here. So there is a girl called Kalyani Khona. She started a company called Inclove, and I'll give this example of Inclove because this is coming from the background of people with disabilities. There are so many networking websites like bharatmatrimony.com or jeevansathi.com, shadi.com, but they were not catering to the needs of people with disabilities, because the needs are altogether different when they want to get an alliance or a partner. So Inclove is a very decent example, a very fine example. This girl Kalyani Khona, no experience of disability at home. She is not a person with a disability herself, but she found that this is a very big opportunity, that I need to design a place for people with disabilities to find partners. She borrowed the concept of shadi.com or jeevansathi.com or Tinder or Falana Dimkana and put it under one umbrella, and she named it as Inclove. And this business failed miserably even after having a huge demand in India, huge demand, because the execution failed. So she realized that there's a huge opportunity. She was passionate to make matches of people with disabilities, but she failed because of the execution and the lack of ability of people, or lack of interest of people with disabilities to pay for the services they were receiving from Inclove. So this organization failed. So why I'm telling you here, because sometimes we see that this is a very big and very feasible opportunity, but are my customers ready to pay for it? So you need to think in a business sense. All these ideas and passion and hobbies and interest areas, or moving examples, moving life, turning narratives, or real life sad experiences, they are good enough, very good. They help us, keep us humble, but are we able to make a business out of it? That's a question. So every time when I ask this question to myself, I generally ask it for people with disabilities wala drive on my own venture. Otherwise, Inkpot Hub is doing really good, and uh, I think that because I was very passionate about driving, am I able to take or make business sense out of it? Am I able to get customers out of it? Now I know that I can, but from whom? So I'm helping people with disabilities, but I'm getting money from somebody else. So we need to find out that gap, and uh, coming back to your question, it was a long answer. I'm sorry, but your question. So passion is definitely helping us to stick to um, our own self. But yes, if it is always a good idea to keep on trying until we find that sweet spot. I would recommend you to read Ikigai if you can, because that book is going to help you understand what is who you are, what is world needing, are you good enough at something, and do you want to do it for others or do you want to do it for business or money. So I'm sure Ikigai is going to help you out in that regards. One
Uh,
should read this book.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there's one last question. This regarding to this uh, products with disability and the mobility solutions with disability. So I think when I was in MTech, I was juggling upon such kind of like usually people with disabilities, where when we have cars, we do not have the space to accommodate for a wheelchair. If
Mm,
anybody is, we have to take them in a wheelchair.
mm,
So when I mean, search through it in the market, we have few car rental companies or cab services, like how in Bangalore we have Kickstart cabs. So
mm,
they have this customized cars with the, where we can actually take the wheelchair and keep it, and they have the RAM facility as well.
mm,
And obviously the pay is more, but I realize that people are willing to pay because this is the only solution they have. Apart from
mm,
that, we have only ambulance that is available.
mm,
When I further went down the same line, we see that even in our public transports, most of the public transports, in fact, even in hospitals, probably the smaller clinics, we do not have the facility, or we can say the accessibility, that function is not there. Although in trains and all, the steps that we see are quite, the height is too up. It's not easy for anybody to get in, or anybody to help and get somebody else also. We need
mm.
certain ramps, and usually we have external sources to get those ramps and then make it fit and get inside the train or anything. So how do you think this environmental risk, the risk associated with, within our environment in public transports, or even in the nowadays in houses that we have, having staircases, or we need to have lifts, if for the mobility solution, so how does it impact in any of the social or profitable ventures for the disability solutions when you're
Okay,
targeting?
so very interesting question again, Indra. Here, what we need to do is, I would request you to, all of you, to find a hashtag ramp my city. Hashtag ramp my city. This hashtag is created by one of the friends. His name is Pratik Khandelwal. Absolutely very very minimum investment. With a very minimum investment, any restaurant, any public facility can become wheelchair friendly. It's about only wheelchair or mobility solutions, not about other disabilities. But just having that openness around the physical infrastructure, whether there is a ramp or not, can make somebody's life easier. So, in one of the interactions with the writer or founder of India Inclusion Summit, Mr. Feroz, he told very interesting answer. He told me that eventually every person in the world is going to experience certain type of body limitations as they grow old. But today, when we are completely bodily fit, we do not see this as an opportunity. Why Japan has the highest um, solutions or maximum solutions for senior people? Because the population is senior population. So if we see and borrow the same concept in India, we can definitely open our eyes and our thoughts to make the entire place accessible and inclusive. But this never happens. It happens only in terms of policies, in terms of rules, in terms of regulations. In real sense, the majority population, which is the invisible majority, the people with disabilities, the highest minority in India and in the world, are highly neglected. But when we see, because when you are talking about accessibility in play, in trains or in public transport, in restaurants. If people like you are talking, then change will certainly happen, because from you, the change starts from your own home, from your own institute, from your own workplace. So when you see that this particular thing is missing, which could make a person with a disability's accessibility easier, I'm sure then it will happen eventually. So it is a long journey. It is definitely going to take generations in India, but I'm sure if we start talking about it today, things will happen. Things will move slowly, and we'll see these changes, say after 10, 15, 20 years down the line. This will happen certainly, and these young people are extremely open about experiments, and they are very much vocal about these as well. So I'll give you here an example. Yesterday, one of the knowns, her name is Kavya. She visited PVR cinemas in New Delhi. In PVR cinema, as per the policy on the website, it mentions that we are accessible for people with disabilities. But when these people with disabilities, especially the wheelchair users, when they go and go to watch the movies, and the place was not accessible at all. So in the policy and in the map, they had shown it, but what they would do is they would lift the person from the wheelchair and make the person sit on the seat which was designated for the person with a disability. But imagine the plight of that person who visualized that I would go in with the wheelchair, which is my body extension, and to watch that movie for 2.5 hours, you are going to detach me from my wheelchair and put me on that seat. That's a humiliation for that person, and that's a disrespect for the assistive device that a person is using. So the policy they have created is said that we are open for people with disabilities, but they, in a real sense, they are not. They are making, they are not respecting the device which they are. I use caliper. If somebody say, if you want to go to a temple, remove your calipers, it means that you are asking me to take my body part off. It's like cutting my body part and asking me to take that off, and then get in a particular temple or any restaurant, or say whatever place. So these experiences, when they come in the social media, when people are vocal about it, and when people or a non-disabled person is hearing these experiences, they somewhere hit here, and these become serendipitous or vicarious experiences to start our own ventures. So Pratik Khandelwal started his venture based on these life experiences. He himself is a person with a disability, uses a wheelchair for his mobility. In Bangalore, he made a lot of places accessible. Now he's coming to Delhi, making Delhi restaurants and public places accessible. So these are certain examples which help us learn very basic bare minimum requirements, and make it happen. So Pratik Khandelwal is making a lot of money out of putting ramps on restaurants and public transport and public facilities. So just see that what kind of solutions we can think of, and keep our eyes and minds open to find that simple solution if they can change somebody else's life. So Indra, I hope I answered your question. I'm so sorry for the long answer. I'm actually overwhelmed with these kind of questions.
No, it was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Okay. So probably we can. Is it okay if we share your details? Probably your organization's website
Yeah, it is
address or
fine. You can
LinkedIn.
share, and you can, anybody if interested can contact me through LinkedIn. So I'm very active over there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anita Sharma, for a wonderful session and a frank opinion of your experience and sharing it with us. Uh, all the participants, I would like you to share if you have any more questions to Dr. Anita Sharma via your contact. Ma'am, can I request you to share your email ID or contact details in the chat box so that they can approach you? Or I can, if you have any doubts, students can also approach us. We can provide this to you. Um, so I
I
think we
shared
can
my
conclude
email
this
ID
session.
in the chat box. Anita@importhub.com.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we can conclude the session if you have no more questions from the participants.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Anita. So we'll be in touch. You said we'll be in touch for your Import Hub
Certainly.
venture also.
I'll speak
Please
with
do
you.
let us know if we can
Certainly.
collaborate in some way.
Certainly.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. See you
Thank
then.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Can we
Thank you,
close the
Dr.
session
Anita.
now? Thank you, Nakul. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.